Welcome to the most unrivaled power rankings available anywhere, the C-Score Power Rankings. So what makes us so special? The fact that we use C-Score, this channel's metric for evaluating every team in the NFL going all the way back through the entire Super Bowl era. For a deeper explanation of C-Score, be sure to check out the description to this video. We do care about a team's record, but it's not everything. Otherwise, we would just post this, the NFL standings. We'd like to think we're better than that. These are the rankings heading into Week 8. We have just one undefeated team left in the NFL, the reigning two-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. But is that enough for them to ascend to the top spot? There are plenty of other teams angling for it, and having a loss, or maybe even two, doesn't automatically preclude another team from taking that from them. C-Score is an evaluative tool that does not project anything into the future, so it's not necessarily a predictive tool. Based on all the action that has taken place during the first 7 weeks of the 2024 NFL season, here are all the teams ranked from 32nd all the way to first. Thank you so much for taking some time with us today. Away we go. Our race to the bottom gives us a new team, but an old team. The Carolina Panthers sitting here at the end with a dreadful C-score of negative 43.161, beating out the entire field by almost 10 full points. Miami escapes the bottom and actually moves all the way up to number 30. We have a new team here in the bottom 8, the New York Giants, taking that loss against the Eagles, dropping a point in the rankings. Their C-score is negative 16.758. The team that escaped the bottom 8 were the LA Rams. They didn't beat the most stellar competition, but they got the win and move up 2 spots to number 23. It's the Cowboys that are now edging dangerously close to that first page. We actually have a more solidified bottom 10 this week, as the gap between 23 and 22 is fairly substantial. That's where the Cincinnati Bengals currently reside. The New Orleans Saints look to be pulling a reverse 1989 Pittsburgh Steelers. They have plummeted all the way down to number 19 this week, but no team took a bigger fall than the Atlanta Falcons, going down 9 spots to number 17. But they still do carry a positive C-score of 1.796. They are once again now being outscored on the season. Correspondingly, the biggest rise this week came from the team that beat the Falcons, the Seattle Seahawks, moving into the top half of the countdown, going up 6 spots to number 16. Looking at number 15 are the Houston Texans, who lost this week, yet they gained C-score, and they moved up 3 spots in the ranking to number 15. The Philadelphia Eagles have now pushed to the edge of the top 10, moving up 4 spots, but only carrying a C-score of 8.339. Coming in at number 10 are the Buffalo Bills. They have the best point differential in the NFL right now, which shows us that point differential isn't everything. There's still a few things on their resume holding them down. The Denver Broncos power back up to number 7 after falling from the number 7 spot last week. The Baltimore Ravens sit at 6th place. You'd think they might be higher, but if any team is being hurt by 1 game this year, it was the Ravens losing to the Raiders. Looking here at number 8, the Green Bay Packers. They won this week. Their C-score dropped and they moved down 3 points in the rankings. We mentioned them because they beat the Houston Texans. Now looking at that last play of the game, Green Bay makes that field goal. If Green Bay misses that field goal, or if it gets blocked, or if the snap is bad, does it truly change the quality of the Packers? Or does it truly change the quality of the Texans? The Packers had a lot of good in their resume. This game was a 50-50, so it lowered them a little bit. The Texans didn't have the greatest resume despite the record, but it was mostly a 50-50 game against a good team, and it rose their C-score. Wins and losses are certainly important. It's what gets you into the playoffs. It's the ultimate goal. But when measuring a team's quality, it's not the be-all, end-all. It's top 5 time, and hanging on to their spot inside the top 5 at number 5 are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, they lost more than 6 points of C-score, but being carried by their strength of schedule and the nice cushion they had, they get to remain here. This is a team that's top 5 in points scored, but also bottom 5 in points allowed. If one of these shifts in a different direction, then Tampa's certainly going to face either a rise up or a fall down. That C-score does sit, however, at 19.678. Edging in at number 4 ahead of the Buccaneers are the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we mean it when we say edging. They are 9/100ths of a point better than Tampa at 19.768. Only the LA Chargers have a better points per game allowed than the Steelers. This is a pretty standard, typical Pittsburgh type team. They plod along, winning games without anybody truly realizing how good they are. This is, top to bottom, a good team. Being undefeated was not enough to vault the Chiefs to the top of this list. They remain at number 3 with a 25.245 C-score. For the second straight season, this team is being carried by its defense. Over the last 2 weeks, they've been putting their stamp on the game a little bit more. They're doing just fine. The number 3 ranking is not a diss. If they continue winning, they're going to be one of the top teams in the league, just as they have been to this point. It's just that right now, through week 7, there are just a couple of teams doing just a little bit better. And one of those teams at number 2 are the Detroit Lions, although I suppose you could argue them for number 1, or you can argue them for number 3. That C-score sits very strong, though, at 30.128. It's one thing to argue that so-and-so beats so-and-so when it comes to a tiebreaker when 2 teams have the same record, but when we're talking about power rankings, we're taking a season-long picture, it's still just one game in an overall resume. It is a very impressive game. The Lions did beat the Vikings this past week. They are only one of 2 teams who are outscoring their opponents by more than 10 points per game. And looking at that overall resume, their only loss this season was to a top 5 team. So while I can see the argument for the Lions being ranked ahead of the team that is ranked ahead of them, and coming into this before the numbers popped out, I thought they might be, they are respectable here at number 2. And of course, that would leave the Minnesota Vikings once again reigning in the number 1 spot, while some could argue they should be number 2, and maybe some could argue them at number 3. They are the league's other team beside the Lions, who have been outscoring their opponents by more than 10 points per game. They didn't drop in the rankings, but their C-score definitely took a drop. They had a more than 8-point cushion over the Lions last week. That cushion now is barely more than half a point. They too only have 1 loss this season to a top 5 team. In fact, it's the number 2 team. That, like the Texans and Packers game, was a bit of a 50-50 game, although in fairness, the Lions did control more of it. So had Minnesota maybe not taken the lead or not lost by just a hair, this ranking would have changed and Detroit would have gone to number 1. Taking a look at all the teams at once now, there was some movement around the board. We've mentioned the Seahawks rise and the Falcons fall, but there's a lot of steady going on here too. The Packers dropped out of the top 5, giving the NFC North only 2 teams in that top 5, but they now have 4 of the top 14 teams. We will once again, after having a bye week, wait for Chicago to start playing the meat of their schedule to see how good they really are. I'd like to know what you think about all of this, though. Is there any team on this ranking that surprises you? Is there any team from this bottom half, 17 through 32, that you think can make a playoff push? Is there a team from the top 10 that you think might fall off completely? I know the Broncos are an easy answer, but they've proven themselves fairly well this season, especially defensively. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this or on anything else. Please give this video a like. I wouldn't mind if you shared it around. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to the channel. And if you are, but you haven't dinged that bell yet to receive notifications, please do that as well. We're coming out with a new video this Friday. We'll have new power rankings next Tuesday. I'd like to thank you once again for joining us today. And until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.